Collective. This is your timeless general reading. Whatever flows is what will be read. Please remember that past, present, and future energetical timelines could come forth within a reading. The energies that will be reading the room, let's put it that way, will be 𝗖𝘀𝗵𝗔𝗽's energy. So to understand 𝗖𝘀𝗵𝗔 energy is to tap into the color violet and to understand what it takes to reach that level of euphoric zen. It comes with a high class of sense of responsibility and accountability, and knowing truths from fiction and holding honesty at the highest integrity to kind of help out, filter out any nuance, behavior or mindsets or situations, or even something as general as energies. So bear in mind a few things before we get started, that if you are interested in booking a tarot service of any kind, or have an inquiry, or even wanting to book any healing sessions, I am a master healer, and information on how to book with me is found in the description box below. In the description box, you will also find various different links to use at your discretion to see whether or not you want to check out the sister channel for this page, and you will find on your own ways what content may be for you. All right. Overall, there's a big, there's lots of narratives, but one key factor in allowing a new Yuga age to come forth is to look at it from a non-binary perspective. And that non-binary perspective forces cognitive dissonance to occur within an individual, because it challenges any kind of theologies you may have, or any kind of religious indoctrinations you may have been given or chosen to come across and dictate a certain viewpoint or understanding, whatever it is that you were searching for. Overall, there's a cloud in the air, and that cloud questions those who are participant of this cloud what gender is, whether it is something that can be indoctrinated within someone's mind to understand within themselves what they are, or trying to find the narrative of tuning in with oneself to feel a sense of resonancy and become that of which it is that you want to become. That narrative is more of sovereignty, where the other one is an indoctrination of speech, of giving you freedom. The freedom aspect comes with a high price, and that sacrilegious price is less money in your pocket. And the idea of the law of manifestation, a law of attraction that doesn't stick, doesn't stay with you. It seems to diminish in some sort of timeline, some sort of end date, some sort of expiration, comes from feeling that certain things that you touch that turn into gold turn eventually into bronze, and maybe then also into dust, and you don't understand what the overall meaning of all of it is at the end of the day. So the ether challenges a very basic understanding that duality has to occur from a singular factorization. We challenge ourselves to understand language because we've been vibrating for echelons of time on numbers and vibration, and they allow us with time to communicate with each other using more context clues within opening up and sharing a dialogue of conversation, rather than just as a simple sound. And having come so far away from what has made humanity tick at one point, and to understand that tribes are still around in certain niches of certain continents that don't rely on words to speak with one another, it dictates a timeline that has been around much longer than human has even learned how to formulate words with one another. That complexity was a gold mine to the thinking brain of human consciousness, but it was also a fall for human consciousness to be convoluted with so much mess and chaos, to try to make sense of so much words. So now we've traveled through consciousness, traveled through experiences and life paths, and an understanding that we are more complex creatures, but with that complexity, there is still a limitation to what we deem ourselves as powerful in, because the indoctrination of a narrative of freedom has taken the power of providing your own, let's say, courage or even wisdom. It was done in a tactic to land in somebody else's pocket and never your own. And that has not only become tiresome for the whole of galaxy to see how humanity can be a way of almost like a demonic wave towards everything else that's balanced in a galaxy, and for thus the other life beings, sentient beings, making themselves more prominent on this earth vibration, to let also those that are on earth vibration know that not only are they not alone, but there is something superior. And that superiority is, in the end of the day, not to really fuck with, right? If you don't know about it, don't fuck with it. To question access to it, you can always get access, because you walk in the same footpath and the gridlock of all of galaxy, that to hold yourself thinking that you don't have something because you're jealous of something else, someone else having something else that you really want, is feeding the narrative of an indoctrinated mind instead of eternal longevity and eternal light of love and generosity. Eternal love and generosity comes at no cost, it comes at no price. Anything that seems to be a quote-unquote loss is only being able to understand the successes that have come, the successes also being the things that have been trials and tribulations. Because these trials and tribulations harden an individual, not because they make someone hardened and less empathic, but more understanding as to why feelings generate so much of a heartbeat of loving the beauty of pretty much all things, but feeling compelled to lift the anchoring of what makes a lot of human consciousness feel, I'm hearing the word bedridden, and not being able to get up and maintain a sense of equanimity for themselves and their surroundings, to feel at zen and at peace. It's now time to let it all go. And that's why the age of cognitive dissonance is not a narrative that needs to be addressed to say that you believe in it or not. It's about addressing a level of aptitude and sharing conversations that you were triggered with from this timeline now, 3 years, to keep your mouth shut and to be less vibrant, be less loud, stay at a distance, to caution yourself and others. And that is, again, from an indoctrinated form of freedom that sounds good. But if you go to places like this reading and you're searching for something else, then you must understand that you're giving a code, and a code is meant for you to crack in non-binary terms. And that code is to understand the fundamental thing that now human consciousness loves, which is computer technology. And that non-binary language is so easy to have, which you can just say it's ones and zeros. So it's not about it being funny or an irony or a coincidence. There's these topics that have been rocketing echelons of time with history and drama, war and chaos, to all start making sense now. And when you have a dialogue, there no longer being an anchorage that is going to come back and return, because wherever you want to go to address that, you're going to be left with no answers, because all those answers were already taken care of. So those of you who haven't had your own Kundalini awakening, it won't be as bad as maybe those individuals who had a Kundalini awakening before 2020, because the vibration of the impact of world economics, world fear, where a lot of children have grown up fearing that Earth was going to be apocalyptic, has happened once again. But this time when you go around anywhere, you might actually not see as many bombs or threats that would have been the case if we were to really say or look for facts as to where our fear is coming from now. Because more than likely, your fear is nowhere to be found, because you are thinking that they exist when they don't. The chaos begins. To practice with intuition is to practice with reflexes on a physical front. To practice with your intuition to see how real it is or how factual it is from being right or wrong is to understand what you know about what you know. And knowing that with that knowing you know nothing, and to trust that knowing that you know nothing, because it can also guide you somewhere. We have the pathless, difficult decisions and lack of direction. See, and it definitely talks about the narrative that there are a lot of people tapped into an ideology that is fulfilled with a lot of possibilities because it has the idea of freedom attached to it, because freedom makes you want to go fight for it because it sounds really good. But in a world of eternal light where everything is at no cost, you already are free, so what are you working so hard for? So this type of awakening could cause a cognitive dissonance symptom to occur, because you have maybe been taught something by parents or individuals around you or the street or just life that made you harden again yourself on a perspective of what survival during this lifetime could mean, which means ignoring what your soul really wants you to do. And those of you who keep going off of the narrative and feeling off are getting more and more pulled into a rabbit hole of thinking that what you're pulling yourself away from is a bad thing, as if you're getting like having a guilty conscience of just having a lot of responsibility or feeling a lot and not being able to feel like you can do a lot to fix those feelings. Truly feeling helpless, as this pathless energy is indicating. All right, there's a lot of fragility, a lot of nervous energy, a lot of nervous tension, as well as overexertion, which means that those who are too busy with energy, they are overexerting themselves with too much physical activity. This can be from going to the gym too many times during a week. This could be searching for adrenaline rush way too much, going for drugs way too many times. You don't need to get that high anymore, that you're not getting high anymore. And when you are getting high, you're not searching for a reason to become grounded in the joy of becoming high. So you're using it as an scapegoat, and that scapegoat is going to overcast a shadow that is not fair to undertake for yourself if you know that there is a soul quest within you that needs to be fulfilled. Because you're answering to your ego, and your ego is actually well adept more than you can actually imagine for yourself if you just allow your ego to pay attention to your soul just one more time and to see if it is ready to work in tandem with soul to get you to feel higher vibrationally and reach that euphoric high that nothing else that you decide to consume can reach that, because it's fundamentally your highest form of being that you just need to be quote-unquote awake to enjoy it. There's a need for a lot of you who may not really understand what may be needed is to open up the third eye, especially if you've taken a lot of controlled substances, or you still dabble with fluoride for some goddamn reason, or you still eat junk food and you dabble with wanting to understand high vibration, but you keep entertaining a low vibrational energy, whether that also means sexually, whether it also means self-harm, negative self-talk, just overall a greedy attitude coming forth here. So opening up the third eye is important to also gain access to what I'm saying. Your highest vibrational light is asking your ego to match up with your soul. The vengeance, overcoming slights, a choice. I think I said something about the anchor earlier, right? And the anchor is here. The vengeance. And the painter, productivity and creation. It all speaks on that, on the intro. And then some. I'm hearing someone could utilize studying the vibration number 3, the magic of 3, 369, 333, 666, and 999. Understanding the difference between the daisy of doom and the flower of eternal life. Someone's seeking judgment, but you're asking for a bit too much at this time without already taking accountability to what you can take accountability for. Alright, we have the number 6 and 9 here. Alright, so we have 9 of Pentacles and a 6 of Pentacles, of Earth energy, the Death card here. You know, whatever it is that you understand about life is mostly attached to a false narrative, because the stoppage is there from you not understanding the power of the 3. The 3 being your own trinity, your own me, myself, and I. Understanding all those versions, all aspects of the potential of what that means to fulfill every facet of that has not yet been understood. So Death card is here asking you to rebirth yourself, and rebirthing yourself and not fearing that death means losing your body that you have and missing out on time or the absence of people or socializing, because that has nothing to do with galactic death of light and the galactic resurrection of light. To understand that trifecta is going to be a fundamental aspect to accept the challenging age of the golden age that we're rushing into. A lot of people will tell you, oh, so many people say we've been saying that we've been in that age for a long time, and we're still in the Kali Yuga age, and we're getting, yeah, whatever. It's all relative anyways, right? So it will unfortunately make sense to the narrative that you are on, not the one that I'm on. The Nine of Pentacles. See, when you go on the other side of the rebirthing canal, you literally come out as someone who has understood a lot of things. Whether you have formulated actual words on those thoughts is not necessarily a concern to being on the path of light. You know, you can look at a baby and more or less kind of use your intuition to judge the needs, the possible needs of this baby, and still understand that because you're not speaking in the language of baby, that you're potentially really helping this being elevate in one way or another, right? So it's the same thing, but just with a you factor, with you yourself and more of you, to allow yourself to see it from that angle of pure isolation that doesn't have to feel codependent to anything but the relationship that you have with yourself. And the world will classify you as narcissistic, perhaps in doing so, psychotic, sociopathic. But ultimately, there are so many different ways that people have a sense of vibration within themselves to be who they need to be. It doesn't diminish the quality of essence that they are. So the Knight of Cups and the Ace of Cups here, really wanting to rejuvenate a new sense of belonging, a new sense of creativity, understanding the message from the Painter card, which is productivity and creation. Letting yourself to transform with these scales here. It's giving me like skin-like scales, reptilian scales. So removing yourself from toxic energy while still allowing yourself to appreciate the metamorphosis of reptilian energy, right? Being able to adapt in the climate as long as they can, being very chameleon-like and blending into the colors and being very vivacious and luxurious. So no matter what kind of pockets of conspiracy theories you concern yourself with, know yourself well enough that you're concerning yourself with it. And with it comes the responsibility of cutting the cord of responsibility if you don't or cannot control the narrative. Look at that. Four of Cups and Ten of Pentacles. To understand the message is to understand the rabbit holes that you get guided to, because that's where you meet interesting individuals in the quote-unquote shadow world, right? And you know, there's a saying that people don't like rats or snitches, and you know, you've however been ratted out. Like, you're being ratted out as a collective to understand what healing is supposed to maintain and what is supposed to be, and it's not a narrative, it's a way of life. And that way of life is to be nurtured with longevity and not money in your pocket. Imagine how beautiful or more of value your true essence could be if you understand that you are made of vibration, and not only can you tap into that vibration and feel that, but your awareness of that doesn't allow, or could never really allow, any negative to want to come through or even sit there, because it's too high vibrational. Like, once something gets so high vibrational, the only thing that's left to heal is anything that are memories, because memories are what is so convoluted and cloudy that remembrances need to come forth from those memories to have a better groundedness, like staying power, vitality, and knowing. And all that is without language, without words. They just tell a good story. Interessante. That's the sun card in it, yep. What do we say? Meet your inner child, your inner light, and there's that little baby. Walking, well, not walking, but galloping on the white horse, being already very pure, some sunflowers in the back. Very powerful card. Very, I was just gonna say, I felt a gnawing ache in my stomach, so some of you are still dealing with having a guilty conscience. I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at the need of that ongoing narrative that's out there about closure. And it's really fucked up. It's a really fucked up narrative because it's very confusing. I don't like things that are very confusing. However, I do love complexity. It's a mess. It's a contradiction. However, the narrative of finding closure is strange because when you leave certain obstacles in life, a lot of people resort to tarot to make sense of why something has happened. What has never made sense to me is that when I physically in my life have closed the door on a human being, and then let's say I would have a reading, the individual comes up in the reading in the eyes and viewpoints of the reader and saying that this person is whatever, is fill in the blank, right? It always bothered my ego why the energy of what I closed the boundary to, or shut out, made its way back into, I guess, in that time, the narrative, right? It wants to come back into my real time, whatever the fuck real time is. Well, what's messy about that is that why do so many readers tap into that energy, knowing that they most likely are also sharing the news of the awareness that that person is actually not around you? So why continue with the narrative that that person is actually whatever? Maybe also the reconciliation card comes in, right? Speaking on how much they regret their choices, and it's not you, it's them, and blase blasa, right? It's all, whatever you always are in search for, you're always gonna fucking find. The challenge is to understand why it is that you're finding it and making sense of that mess. Because that's where you'll realize you're going to be challenging a lot of people who want to say they know something better than you do. And that's the quest on understanding how the matrix, for example, if you quote unquote believe in it to exist, how that operates. Where you go in your life to get your answers and how limited you actually feel in getting those answers met is exactly the narrative that the ether wants you to start paying attention to, and how ironic that is that people in the quest of the narrative to reach their freedom are absolutely not the first one being able to justify giving you a solid answer that you feel on all levels of your being satisfied with. Ain't that awkward? So you go to a person, ask for a reason to understand something, they pick up of an energy, they read it, you agree in one way or another. You can understand the resonancy of the message, like most messages. It's timeless in the fact that anything can be spoken about. But what's so ironic in the patterns that keep coming up? Not understanding what closure is. Because closure comes with a price of thinking that it comes with a duality. I need something to happen, and because it happened with the reaction of another, I need another to be just as strong for it to be no longer a thing. It's a false idealization. The one becomes a one because it's solid in being one, and then it combusts itself because it can't hold on anymore and turns into two. It doesn't dissect itself and then becomes two, and is then codependent on the two. It's two because it no longer has a say-so in being one. It's too powerful. They're interconnected, not overlapped and not holding hands to get through. It's an interconnectedness journey. So the closureness aspect has to come from understanding that cutting the cord doesn't mean dealing with guilty consciousness to the point where you have to rely on another person to fix it. It's more of what is it about you that is constantly addressed with that feeling, and you say it's uncomfortable, and maybe you're even that damaged goods to think that that is a blame to someone else and not you, because maybe it is. Maybe that guilty consciousness was born because you were abused emotionally and physically, and with time you can think that because you had no say-so in that vulnerability and that trajectory, that you are nothing but left with feeling guilty because you think you're battling with not knowing what is right and what's wrong. What did you do to deserve the consequences of those actions? And maybe over time be left with the guilty conscience that we were left with speaking on. It's sad to hear that ultimately, on this general reading, that it could be a personal problem, but we have to break the damaged cord and say it is a personal problem. If you go to anyone that you want to assist in your soul, the person that fulfills the soul is only giving you more of who you are, because that's the only moment that you will feel the richness of what is your potential. So you can never take from someone else something that doesn't belong to you in the richness of good. It's an interconnectedness. So that's a challenging aspect for a lot of individuals, because the sun will be too hot and too physically damning for one to feel too comfortable in one spot. You will always need to move in until you get it. You will always need to understand what it means to never sit still, to understand the value of what it means to finally sit still. Two of Pentacles. It's the pulling of the heartstrings. Finding the justice and knowing that you can't blame anyone for the healing that needs to be done. You just can't. You either show up to like every other dramatic thing that you show up and call it healing and know that it's healing and change the perspective of how well you could be or how unwell you really are, or you stick to the narrative of indoctrinated narrative of freedom is free. Because it's just not true, and you know that. An aspect of who you are knows that and will fight to be an anarchist, but that's an anarchy that you will never win, because you will run yourself dry thinking you're getting yourself closer to the gold that's going to turn into something. I mean, here in the bronze metaphor. So struggling to understand earth vibration is not actually the case here. It's about understanding silence when you're in it, and understanding the chaos when you're in that, and knowing how to maneuver in both realities in both times, always. The World and the Knight of Pentacles. Ultimately, those choices are easy for you to do, because all it takes is, what do you want, right? Now, to understand the difference between wants and needs is to ask yourself what it is you desire, because you will naturally want to feed the things that you desire and then chisel away at the things that you want. The Fool. Major Arcana energy asking you, the ego factor, to align again yourself with the intuition factor, and to dance in pride with how chaotic your ego may be. and that there is a reason for it. There's a reason why you may have been one version of a person and why you never thought you would be that person, and then boom, something shifts, and it's like a mask, either a new mask was born or a mask was taken off, and a new identity is being emerged from that interconnectedness of self. And that is a risk factor, because there's a maturation of the galactic light form of essence within you that's happening at all form of time, at all given time and space, however many past lives you've had or not, and just overall being connected to galactic light. It's an inhalation process, meaning air magic. We have loss doesn't indicate suffering, not poignant, and consent to consenting. Whew. Talking about how knowing how to shift from the indoctrinated mindset of freedom isn't free to sovereignty. That one is a clue. Consent to consenting. Yeah. You're gonna have to really sit there and be with your energy to understand that message. And then we have here, shadow work is addressing difficult things in life. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and all those in between and beyond, if you'd like any of my services, so check out that description box below, or for anything else that might intrigue you. I'm wishing you a wonderful morning, noon, or night, wherever you are in the ether of this time and space. And may you keep flowing, growing, and glowing. Take care.